Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all having an amazing week. So a few weeks ago, I asked those who were following me on Instagram to share what topics they'd like to hear on my weekly videos, and I had an overwhelming response to share some insight into my life with 3 rescue dogs. Now, before I introduce you to my 3 fur babies, I do feel the need to share a little bit of how we started adopting dogs in the first place versus purchasing them. So back in 2000, one of my uncles was given 2 puppies to keep from an acquaintance of his, and they were such troublemakers, as most puppies are. And my family actually fell in love with both of them, because they're puppies. But of course, we made a very, very special bond with one in particular that just so happened to be the most troublemaker of the 2. So we decided to keep him. We named him Rusty, and he was my best friend and my companion for 15 years. Rusty lived a long and beautiful life. I was very, very young when we brought him home with us, so I do regret a few things like not socializing him enough. But besides my own errors, Rusty was such a good boy and he was my best friend. Rusty was diagnosed with cancer in February of 2015, already quite a senior boy at this time, and he passed in April of the same year. So that was one of the worst pains I have ever felt. I seriously don't even remember what my mental health was even like at that point. It was just a very sad, very, very dark time for myself and for my family. After Rusty passed away, our house was so damn quiet. At this point, my brother and I were still living at home with my parents in a small little bungalow, and I don't even remember seeing or speaking to them for about 6 months. The house felt so empty, and it was just very, very depressing. So around the fall in 2015, 6 months after Rusty had passed, Johnny and I actually started talking about getting out of our slump, and we started looking up animal shelters just to start volunteering our time. We came across a page on Facebook for a dog and horse sanctuary in King City. It was called Dog Tales, and we signed up for the volunteer orientation session that was coming up. So we drove up to Dog Tales one weekend because we had to fill out some volunteer application forms. And while we were there, we just walked around. The grounds are beautiful, and we went into the kennels to see all the dogs that were in need of homes. There were quite a few dogs we saw that day that we loved, but we did see a dog trainer enter a kennel, and we saw the reaction of a 3-legged dog jumping so high, wiggling her butt like crazy, so excited to see her trainer. And I turned to Johnny and I said, she needs to come home with us. Essentially, instead of completing our volunteer application forms, we filled out an adoption form for our sweet little cow, Lina. And here she is! Yay! We actually don't let her on the couch, so she is very, very excited about this. Okay, so a bit of a biography on our sweet girl, Lina. As I mentioned, we adopted Lina from Dog Tales, who actually rescued her from a shelter in Miami. Lina had abusive parents before they neglected her. They actually physically hurt her, including fracturing her leg. So she was left tied up to the fence around the shelter with her broken leg. So due to her injury, she had very, very little chances of being adopted because, not everyone dreams of owning a 3-legged dog, and it's kind of hard to take on a medical responsibility of handling her situation, so her chances were slim. She actually didn't receive any interest at the shelter, and because it was an overcrowded shelter with everyday surrenders, Lina was put on the euthanasia list to make space for more adoptable dogs. So Dog Tales thankfully has a partnership with this Miami shelter. They often bring dogs and take them off their hands, and they bring them to Canada for a second chance at life, and that's exactly what happened for Lina. So Lina came home with us on Thanksgiving Day with a fresh amputation. They couldn't save her leg, but either way, Lina was the happiest. She jumps around like crazy, and I seriously don't even think I could handle her strength if she had all 4 of her legs. Lina is 6 years old. She's a sweet and goofy girl, and she loves playing with her tug toys. She's definitely a daddy's girl. She drives us absolutely bonkers, and she's such a farty pants, but we love her so much. Say hello to Instagram, baby girl. Oh shoot, I got lipstick on. Alright, moving on to fur baby number 2. So about a year later, Johnny was actually working on a video for Dog Tales when he met and fell in love with Mr. Julian, aka Juju. Juju came home with us in August of 2016. And this is him! Hi, say hi, sweet boy! Say hi! So as you can see, Juju cannot. He was actually a street dog in Miami, and no one knows how long he was a street dog for or how long he was a blind street dog. And when he first came home to us, he was such a sweetheart, super timid, very, very scared, of course. You know, he's blind into a new world that he was coming into, so he was very, very scared. And then he quickly turned into a little monster. So Juju had severe glaucoma in both eyes, which led to his blindness. And in order to keep the pain managed and controlling his eye pressure, we had to administer a cocktail of eye drops twice a day. And this turned out to be quite a nightmare. We would actually have to sneak up behind him and like muzzle him really, really quick before he could react. We had to tilt his head up and drop the eye drops without having him bite our friggin' hands off. And we kept this up for about 3 months until I was like, okay, Johnny, please take him to the optometrist. Like, his pressure has to be better at this point. Maybe we don't even need to do the stupid eye drops anymore. Please check him out. And we were wrong. So his eye pressure had actually worsened. A normal eye pressure is about 12 to 22 millimeters of mercury. And Juju's was at about 80 and 95. So this poor boy was in constant state of pain, which is why he was so aggressive and angry. It was like he had a severe brain splitting pain at every moment of every day. So our doctor said we needed to remove his eyes as soon as possible. So 2 days later, we were taking Juju in to have his eyes removed, and I, of course, was a hot mess. I, of course, knew that this was the right move to make, but I just felt so bad for him, and I was also a little scared because he's a senior boy as well. But fast forward to now, Juju is a very, very different dog after his surgery. All he does is sleep still, but he's less grumpy, less aggressive. He's still a bit sassy at times, so that hasn't changed, but he's definitely changed so much since he had his surgery. Juju is 11 at the moment. He's turning 12 this year. He has the stinkiest breath ever, and he's pretty much a genius. When he first moved into our apartment, we actually thought he'd have the hardest time adjusting to the new space, but it turned out that Lina actually had a harder time than Juju. Juju had mentally mapped out the apartment in about 3 days. So in 3 days, he knew exactly where his water bowl was, he knew where his bed was, he knew where our bed was, and he knew where to wait in the foyer to go outside for his walk. But yeah, he's pretty much a brilliant genius. And that's it for Juju. Right, Juju? Last but not least, we have Mr. Charles. So Charles is the last addition to our clan, and he came home to us last year. He's also a senior boy with a very, very interesting attitude. The most cuddle bug of all three, and he is often demanding our attention. He's a very jealous boy with his siblings, and especially when he hears his siblings getting attention instead of him. So he's also blind. We're not 100% sure if he's like fully blind, but he pretty much walks into absolutely everything, so we're pretty sure he is. Charles is a Toronto boy, and he was actually a local surrender. His family, due to medical emergencies that they had to work with, they pretty much spent 24/7 at the hospital, and they had to make a very difficult decision to let him go home to another family because they just couldn't give him the attention that he needed. He was surrendered to dogtails, and I fell in love with this little cotton ball so quickly. So his jealousy and guarding of toys is a bit hard to manage at times. It gets me a little bit anxious, to be honest, when he's around other dogs and our dogs. So we are doing our best to find peace in the furry galaxy. Okay, so you've met them all. Lina, Juju, and Charles. This is our happy little clan, and I'm so glad I got to introduce you to them. If you have any additional questions about adoptions, caring for blind dogs, caring for seniors, or even caring for tripods, or just dogs in general, you have my full attention because, as you can see, we are very, very much dog people. Happy Wedding Wednesday, everyone. I'm so happy I got to share a little glimpse into my crazy personal life, and I can't wait to chat with you next week. Thank you. Okay, everyone gets treats.